Hey guys, it's Chris and welcome back to another Game of Thrones Season 8 video. This will be my Episode 4 review, The Last of the Starks. But first off, let me thank my newest Patreon. Thank you to Dave Chandler, I really appreciate the support. Thank you to everyone on Patreon. You guys keep this channel going through the long night. Anyway, let's jump right in, and if you were on the live stream last night after the episode, you already know I have a lot of mixed feelings about this episode. But I've had time to process it a little bit more, and I still have a lot of issues, although there were some great parts as well. We start off with a great scene of the funeral pyre, the enormous funeral pyre, a lot of goodbyes here, and essentially this was to convey what they just lost in the previous battle. I really did like this scene. Dany says goodbye to Jorah, Sansa says goodbye to Theon, and I really love the part where Sansa puts the Stark pin on Theon because she never really got to truly say goodbye to him and really tell him that she does accept him as a Stark. So it was a really touching moment and a really good little detail to add to that goodbye scene. We see Jon give a Night's Watch style speech that was very kingly, so to speak, as he calls everyone the shields that guards the realms of men. And he was absolutely right. Those people will never be remembered for anything. Because the Night King didn't make it beyond Winterfell, this whole entire battle with the Night King might actually be seen as a legend to some people. So it's like it never really happened. It's just going to be another legend in some book somewhere. Then we have a great little scene where they all seem to be on the same team finally, where they feast and celebrate as they all come together. But I guess we were kind of wrong here. We do see Dany raise Gendry to the Lord of Storm's End. We all kind of thought that may happen to kind of keep House Baratheon in the fold. But of course Sansa questions why she did it. Was it just to get an ally or because he actually deserves it? And I think it was a little bit of both. I do think that's a fair question. But at the same time, Dany has always said, I am not my father. And Jon has repeated this as well, so Gendry is not his father, as she's always preached, so I do think she believes he deserves it, but it can also have a political benefit at the same time. So it wasn't some kind of undermined thing just to gain more allies. They already all should be allies. They had the same goal in defeating the Night King, and now they all have the same goal in defeating Cersei. Also during this feast, we do see Tormund raise a glass to the Dragon Queen and everyone cheers, so you start to think everybody's on the same page. But throughout this scene, we see Dany feel more and more isolated as she enjoys her Starbucks double mocha latte. Yes, that actually happened. They left that in the damn show, so apparently Winterfell does have a Starbucks now. But as they all get drunk throughout this feast, they give Jon all the credit for being such a badass and doing things like riding a damn dragon. And I will say here, Jon should have taken this opportunity to point out that Dany has been riding dragons for years, and he shouldn't deserve all the credit. They all sacrificed a lot, lost a lot of people, but she was a big part of why they all survived this damn thing in the first place. Then we had a Sansa Hound reunion that we were missing in the previous episodes. I thought this was really good. The Hound being his typical self, he was a little bit harsh, I would say, in his wording about what happened to Sansa, but Sansa does look at it as a positive and says, if it weren't for all those bad people, I would still be a little bird. Then we see Gendry all in love with Arya, and he is denied, straight up denied. He actually proposes to Arya and said, I'm now the Lord, I don't know what to do, I've never been a Lord, but I would like for you to be my lady, be my wife, and come with me. And Arya instantly rejects him and says, I am not a lady, that's not me, kind of repeating these lines from previous seasons. So we all kind of wanted them to become kind of a thing, but we all thought that Arya was starting to change, where she was starting to focus on family and all this stuff, where she may end up becoming a lady because love happens. So it was really odd for these characters this episode. It felt like a lot of character regression, actually, because Arya has become more about her family, about the wolf pack surviving, all that good stuff, and seemingly she's over her list and being a cold-blooded assassin as far as the darkness and identity crisis that used to run her life. But when she's given a chance to become a lady and part of a bigger family, she essentially turns it down and just leaves with the Hound to go kill Cersei apparently in King's Landing, as the Hound goes to kill the Mountain. So for me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for their character progression. Now they feel like they're going back to their old selves. We see Jaime and Brienne finally hook up, and I actually never expected this to happen. I thought this was a good little touch here. They finally expressed their love for each other, and I thought they were both too proud to do so. So apparently they did spend a few nights together, but then he plays the asshole again to make it easier on her to leave to go back to Cersei. Now, I don't think he wants to actually fight for Cersei, but try to reach out to her one more time to save his child. But the showrunners did say Cersei was his addiction, essentially, in the behind-the-scenes episode after the show. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this. It seems like he wants to go give it one last shot to try to save his child's life. But does he really still love Cersei? According to the showrunners, he does. Then we have Dany and Jon, and we finally think they're okay. They start to make out a little bit in the room as Jon's a little bit tipsy, but he of course is having issues with her being his aunt, which is expected from Jon, but to her it's not that big of a deal because of course she expected to grow up and marry Viserys like it always happened in the Targaryen family. But she essentially begs him not to tell, not just because of the throne, because she knows it would tear them apart, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Now we did expect a little drama, but not on this scale. Then we see Jon meeting his family in the Godswood, and he does decide after the conversation with Dany to go ahead and tell Arya and Sansa, but he makes them swear not to tell anyone ever, and Bran of course dumps the news on him off camera. I wish they would have given us this conversation so we could see their reactions. But of course Sansa, taking a page right out of Littlefinger's playbook, immediately betrays Jon to undermine Dany, all because for some reason she still doesn't trust her. She just helped save Winterfell and the world for that matter, so now she's officially Littlefinger. She immediately tells Tyrion because she knows the information would get to Varys and spread, and it was all to undermine Dany for Jon because she believes Jon will be a better ruler when he's already said he doesn't want the damn throne for himself. So she tells Tyrion, and she starts the conversation by saying, what if there were someone better? And then we see Bronn back to being a dickhead again as he shows up in Winterfell and immediately confronts Jaime and Tyrion. Now, of course, as I said before, I didn't think he would actually kill Jaime or Tyrion, but it's really sad to see him go back to old Bronn where he really is being an asshole. He actually punches Tyrion in the face here, and this is all after his character had apparently grown beyond just money and gold, because he's the one who left the gold behind last year to save Jaime's life. So again, for me, this episode has all these characters, including Bronn, regressing back to their former selves. And then we see one of the worst scenes ever. Jon is just simply the worst pet owner in history, and he simply gives Ghost away like he's some stray dog that wandered into Winterfell and never even pet him or showed him any love whatsoever, after he's the one in season 1 that talked Ned into keeping the direwolves in the first place. Jon and Ghost have always been close, but this season he has not even paid attention to Ghost whatsoever, and now he says direwolves don't belong down here. He'd be a lot happier beyond the wall. I don't know why, that doesn't make any sense. And Ghost is whimpering, and it's very, very sad and doesn't make a lot of sense. He could just simply hang around Winterfell while he goes south to fight Dany's war. And then we see a couple of goodbyes. I do think these are final goodbyes. We see Jon say goodbye to Sam and Tormund. I think this will be for good. Tormund is apparently going back beyond the wall and taking Ghost with him. Hopefully he's a better pet owner than Jon. And that's certainly fine if Tormund really wants to go back beyond the wall, if they really love that area. I do think now that the Night King is dead, that the seasons will go back to normal, so it won't be a constant harsh winter all the time. But why, Tormund? You can have any castle in the north. How about the Glovers? And then we have Dany and them flying back to Dragonstone as they head to plan the war against Cersei, and apparently she cannot see Euron's fleet once again from the sky, and Euron comes out of nowhere in just the right place at just the right time to kill Rhaegal with new and improved scorpions. Dany obviously gets enraged and charges at Euron, wanting to kill them all, but then pulls away at the last second, knowing that all those scorpions will kill her and Drogon as well. But I fully expected her to pull up and then go around behind the fleet where they cannot maneuver, they cannot turn around that fast, and although the scorpion bolts likely pivot 360 degrees, they can't shoot through their own damn ships, and attack them from behind. Euron should have been dealt with a long time ago, so in the past couple seasons I could deal with Euron showing up magically in the right place at the right time, but this is getting a little bit old now. Euron should have been dealt with a long time ago, and she simply could have flown around behind the fleet and burned them all to a crisp in about 5 minutes, and there would be no more Euron Greyjoy and this magical Greyjoy fleet that keeps appearing everywhere at just the right time. But anyway, the point to all this was to make it essentially where Dany and the dragons were powerless, just like everyone else, to kind of even the odds, I suppose, to kind of give Cersei a chance. Then we have a scene with Tyrion and Varys already discussing treason. Now this is what I didn't understand about this episode. You would think Dany's done some horrible thing off screen that we don't know about, because the Northmen simply were celebrating Jon more in the feast. All of a sudden that makes Dany a horrible ruler for some reason, and I don't really understand this logic. She's always had these little impulses, but she's never actually done anything. She's listened to them every single time, except for the Tarleys. She did burn them, but she did give them a choice as well, so it wasn't some unhinged Mad Queen losing her mind moment. She's literally freed slaves and done all this stuff. They believed in her from the beginning. They set this up from season 1, and now all of a sudden, Jon should be the better ruler because he simply doesn't want the throne, and she does. Now, I do understand to a degree, Dany needs to kind of let go of the idea of the throne so much because she's still kind of harping on it a bit, but she still puts her money where her mouth is and saved the realm before she wanted to rule it. So I will say that Dany should recognize that the Targaryens and she is just as much as part of the will she wants to break as anyone else, and I think that's the ultimate goal here. But it just felt a little rushed for them to be talking about Jon as the true leader as opposed to Dany when she's done nothing wrong. And again, this is not about happy endings or whatever. I never expected Dany to take the throne. I've always thought she would learn and eventually choose not to take the throne simply because of the House of the Undying vision, where she chose not to touch it when we saw snow all over the throne. But like Tyrion said, there's no reason Jon and Dany can't rule together if that's what they choose to do as a couple. But the ultimate goal here will be for them to obviously take Cersei out of power and let the people decide who they want to rule, or some kind of ruling council or something like that, where there is no more monarchy and feudalism goes away. That's been the whole entire idea of this show and book series for me, but it looks like we're heading towards a Dany versus Jon Targaryen civil war. And this is the other thing that kind of bothered me about this episode. They all have the same goal of deposing of Cersei on the Iron Throne, but they all want to do it in their own way. Arya wants to kill Cersei herself for revenge. Dany has always wanted to remove Cersei since she got to Westeros. That was her goal in the first place. It wasn't some hidden secret thing. And of course, don't forget, Sansa wants to remove Cersei as well. Sansa can't stand her and knows she's evil. They all have the same goal, but now they all want to get there in different ways when you thought they were on the same page after the Battle of Winterfell. And then finally we see Missandei was captured by Euron and taken back to King's Landing. And then we have this insane little parlay here where Dany and company stand out in the open in archer range. And this is what bothers me here. If you're going to have a horrible ending, go ahead and own it. Cersei could have won the war right there, but just chose to kill Missandei, being Dany's best friend, and piss her off, so they have to come back to set up the final war that we will ever see on Game of Thrones. So that was just a little insane to me. I understand that doesn't represent her entire army. Grey Worm did say earlier on in the episode, as they planned the war, that they lost half of their army in the battle for Winterfell. So that was just apparently a small group. One last ditch effort by Tyrion to talk some sense into Cersei, and she chose to kill Missandei and piss everyone off instead of just killing them all right there on the spot. So it looks like at least the direction they're going, or at least they want us to believe this, is they're heading towards a Dany versus Jon fire and blood showdown, where he may have to save King's Landing, not from Cersei, but from Dany, just like Jaime had to save King's Landing from her father. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this episode still. And again, it's not that I expected some happy, perfect ending, because if you believe that, you have not been paying attention. But the way they're doing it doesn't make a lot of sense. And for them to pretend like Dany's done something horrible when they all just won the war that should have united them all in the first place, behind the same goal of deposing of Cersei and then figuring out what's best for Westeros. And as usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon, and a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and share, and be sure to subscribe to get everything and click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.